Augustus Doricko is with us. He is the founder and CEO of Rainmaker. This is a cloud seeding company. Welcome, Augustus. How are you?
Hi, Glenn. I'm blessed. I appreciate you having me here. And again, still, my heart and prayers go out to all the people of Texas. I'm here in Dallas now, actually. And though we didn't have anything to do with the flooding, I still am praying for everybody affected by it.
It has got to be pretty disturbing for you to hear that you are being blamed for, cloud seeding and knowing science. I have to tell you, I don't know much about cloud seeding. It bothers me what I see over in England, but I, again, haven't taken the time to really look into it. So explain what cloud seeding does and how you know you didn't have anything to do with that.
Yeah, I can also explain to you what cloud seeding does and what cloud seeding is not, right? Because you're referencing something from England that we can talk about in a second. So cloud seeding is a technology developed in the United States in the 1940s to increase water supply for farms, for ecosystem conservation, for reservoirs, for residences, and also our industries. It relies on identifying liquid in clouds and then releasing particulate, specifically silver iodide, into those clouds that the water freezes onto into big snowflakes and then become heavy enough to fall as rain. Cloud seeding has been going on in the United States for decades. It, again, is paid for by farmers and utilities and government entities that want more water for their constituents.
Hang on just a second. So I live up in the high desert in the summer, and I have a farm and a ranch, and we pray for rain every year because it's hard, but we're in the high desert. It wouldn't work here because we don't have the clouds, right?
So first of all, I think you should keep praying for rain. I'm grateful to have gotten saved when I was 20 years old and baptized in Dallas, actually. I think that this is all God's world and it's our responsibility to steward it, right? And insofar as we can help make more water for people and ecosystems here, that's my primary interest. Just because you're in the high desert doesn't mean that you can't have cloud seeding. If there aren't clouds, then you can't make it rain more. But sometimes there are. And also, the aquifers nearby are recharged from cloudier regions not so far away. And so you can actually benefit from programs nearby as well. Now, to clarify, cloud seeding, the best operations we've ever seen from either Rainmaker's own work or the National Center for Atmospheric Research or other institutions can produce tens of millions of gallons of precipitation distributed over hundreds of square miles over the course of about an hour or two. The remnants of Tropical Storm Barry that blew in and caused the flooding, that storm dumped trillions of gallons. It's about 1 million times less than what the biggest and best cloud seeding operations can do right now. Now, that said as well, when you referenced England, right, cloud seeding is not solar radiation modification, nor is it chemtrails, right? Solar radiation modification is a real technology that people are investigating and developing and increasingly deploying to release reflective particles into the upper atmosphere to cool down the planet, to dim the sun and cool the planet down. Cloud seeding, although it is also in the atmosphere, I think that it's something that deserves a ton of scrutiny. Totally agree.
Yeah, I think so too. Yeah.
But cloud seeding has nothing to do with that. Cloud seeding requires existing puffy clouds full of water to be there in order to make them precipitate a little bit more. Now, if you see a long streak in the sky behind an airplane, that also is not cloud seeding. Whether that's a natural contrail or a chemtrail, I haven't seen any evidence to suggest that chemtrails are malevolently being put down by the government or some other nefarious party. But regardless of which it is, a chemtrail or contrail, it has nothing to do with cloud seeding either, because producing clouds is not what cloud seeding does. Cloud seeding relies on existing clouds to make them rain more. And those long streaks in the sky, those are mostly ice. There's not enough water in them to seed in the first place, and they're also like 20,000 feet higher in the atmosphere than where all of our cloud seeding operations take place.
Okay, so you went out, what day? Thursday, and cloud seeded in Texas?
July 2nd, we flew about a 20-minute flight where we seeded two small clouds with about 70 grams worth of silver iodide. That's about 10 Skittles worth of material. And those clouds dissipated about 2 hours after the event.
Any rain?
Yeah.
Okay. And they dissipated, and they don't remain up in the atmosphere, right?
The clouds,
The Skittles.
for one, the Skittles of material, they could not have stayed suspended in the atmosphere
Okay.
by the time that the flooding started happening.
Okay. And then the flood, that was a storm that rolls in and was not part of the system that you seeded, correct?
Correct. And also, it's worth noting that, a lot of people have said, well, this shouldn't go on without any oversight. And I totally agree. And I think that there should be even more regulatory scrutiny and oversight and reporting requirements so that these operations are totally transparent. But there actually are regulations in Texas through the Texas Department of Licensing and Regulation that have suspension criteria. And suspension criteria are these meteorological conditions, these weather conditions, these issuances and notifications from the National Weather Service that say, hey, if there is a flash flood warning, if the soil is already too saturated, if cloud seeding would cause any flooding, you have to suspend operations. And not only did we suspend operations in adherence with the regulations from the state of Texas, but we actually, because our meteorologists were very proactive, suspended operations a day in advance of any warnings that would have regulatorily mandated us to, because we at Rainmaker earnestly believe that this is God's kingdom to steward, and it is our job to do no harm and do as much good as we can. And so if we can bias towards being cautious, not so cautious that we ban this technology and prevent farmers from having water from it, but if we can be cautious in our operations such that we mitigate any potential for any damage, which we did and do, I'm all for that. That's what everybody's opinion is at my company.
So I know China is doing cloud seeding up in the mountains to get much more snow up in the mountains, so then they have the water, the runoff, et cetera, et cetera. Are they ahead of us? Is this what we're doing? Is it the same thing?
So China, just for context, the United States a year ago spent $2.4 million on cloud seeding research, right, to investigate how to produce more water for American farms, to save the Colorado River, to refill our aquifers, right? $2.4 million total, and that was a one-off. China has an annual budget of $1.4 billion for cloud seeding and weather modification. They have 35,000 employees in their weather modification office. They have 2 universities that offer bachelor's degrees in weather engineering, not meteorology, not atmospheric science, but specifically how to engineer the weather. And if the United States bans this technology wholesale, if we don't regulate it and monitor where it's going on so that we have a transparent account of the activities, not only will we be behind China, but we won't have regulatory statutes or the capability to monitor who is modifying the weather in the United States and otherwise.
Okay, so tell me the difference between weather modification, which sounds scary, and cloud seeding.
Totally. I think the bigger distinction to make is between weather modification, which cloud seeding is a kind of, and geoengineering, right? So cloud seeding is a way to make more water, right? You are modifying the weather by making it rain or snow a little bit more. Geoengineering is a global climatic intervention designed to either cool the planet down or create, reflective high altitude clouds, and that has, again, nothing to do with cloud seeding, which is a form of weather modification. And to your point about it sounding scary, right, I could try to do some sort of slimy PR thing and say, cloud seeding's not weather modification, but fact of the matter is, making it precipitate a little bit more is modifying the weather. And I think that I would rather be totally transparent about that and also say, it's something that we should regulate, and it's something that we should be cautious about, and we should approach it with a mindset of stewardship. But still, if we were to ban it wholesale, not only would we deprive Americans of having access to more water from it, but also we'd be liable to other countries continuing to do it without it from us.
So you remember the big hurricane that happened, and we were hit by 2. One came and hit Florida, and then the other one came barreling in to North Carolina up from Florida. And people said, that was weather modification. That they cloud seeded that, and they modified that, and they even steered that. I never believed any of that stuff. But can it be done? Can that be done?
No. It at this point in time cannot be done. The modification of a hurricane such that would either increase or reduce the winds, increase or reduce the damage done by it. That is not something that is doable. Now, that being said, it's worth talking about something called Project Storm Fury, where in the last century, the United States Weather Bureau and Air Force conducted flights over the Atlantic to try to seed hurricanes to mitigate the damage that they would do by the time they broke against the eastern seaboard. And we stopped that program because we didn't have what's called attribution, right? We didn't have the right radar. We didn't have any good satellites to measure what the effect from the seeding was. The reason why cloud seeding is coming back into the discourse now, why it's a viable technology that people are paying for, is because we can measure what the results of our operations are. And I would say that although Milton and Helene, I've seen no evidence of having been modified, and I'm totally open-minded about that. And if anybody does have it, I would happily scrutinize it and talk about it. But despite not believing those to be modified, it is worth thinking about the fact that, like at the beginning of time in Genesis 1:26 through 28, one of the first commandments we were given before the fall, while we were still in the garden, right, before sin, God told us to take dominion over and steward the earth, the seas, the skies, and everything therein. And so should we now be concerned about making more water for our farms? Absolutely. Should we at least consider a potential world with extreme caution, and again, a mindset of like prayerful stewardship, the notion that we could mitigate severe weather in the future? I think that it would be abdicating our responsibility to try to tend to the world that God gave us if we didn't at least think about it. And I am not advocating we do that now or anytime soon or without severe scrutiny from the federal government and transparency for everybody. But it's something that may at some point in the future be able to benefit folks.
Yeah, I don't mind looking into technology. I just wish we would slow down sometimes. With what's happening with AI, we've seen the damage that social media did. Now we're going into AI, and it's coming at us faster, and we have no idea what it's going to do. When you're throwing stuff up, whether it's chemtrails or whatever, I don't know enough about it, but I sure would like to be in part of the discussion on some of these things. I'd like to have our government say, hey, what do you think? Are we going to do this or not? And leave it up to the people. We're talking about doing some things to the planet that, might be good, but also could be horrible. And, the arrogance on some of this stuff really bothers me. Augustus, thank you so much for having a frank conversation with us. I pray for you and your family and all the coworkers at Rainmaker who I know feel, because, it's obvious, you feel for the families, et cetera, but now to be blamed for it is it's got to be hard. It's got to be hard. Thank you, Augustus.
Thank you, Glenn.